welcome to Tell Me Your Story. This is a special edition of Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we're focusing on the works of contributing authors to a Sacred Stories publishing book, third in the series, called Mayhem to Miracles. And this particular book contains some wonderful insights that you are going to hear about on this program as we speak with our respective guests. We have spent time interviewing 12 different authors of the 30. And we are going to talk with one of those authors today who has contributed a story called A Mother's Mission to Save Her Child. It sounds like these are similar stories, but they are each one uniquely different. Certainly the emotions are the same, as we've talked about on this program. We all do experience the same emotions, but our stories are what make us unique. And my very special guest, and I apologize for not asking this question before we started, but I'm going to ask it now. Deborah, I want to thank you for joining us on the program. And how do you pronounce your last name?
Beauvais.
Beauvais.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Say again?
Thank you for the opportunity to come.
Absolutely. So Deborah Beauvais is our guest here on the program, and it's a wonderful opportunity to talk with her, not only about her story as it appears in the book that I just mentioned, which is Mayhem to Miracles, but also about the work that she does, the other work, the other things that she is involved in. And we're very, very grateful to have her here today to discuss those kinds of things, because we need to learn from one another. And we're going to learn a lot, I think, today from Deborah. So first things first, let us give out some information here about Deborah am I correct that this is a book by you called Love by Intuition?
No, that's the name of my radio show.
And it's Living Your Truth Through Higher Guidance. And this particular program's message is love in the purest form. Let's start by talking about the work that you do and, of course, this program. Now, you say it's a radio program. Is it genuinely a radio program that it probably is also a podcast, similar to Tell Me Your Story? And you have obviously various guests on discussing the things that they're working on, the experience that they have had. Tell us a little bit about this work.
All right. Well, it starts actually with the station that I founded and started all by my very own self back 15 years ago. And so the station is Dream Vision 7 radio and TV network, and I just happen to have a couple of shows on the station. So my work is was all imbued in love, first of all. And someone had suggested at a radio station, gee, you should have your own network. And for some strange reason, it just resonated with me. Mm-hmm. I had no idea of what to do or how to do it, but yet it excited me. And that's one of the things I think that happens in our lifetimes if we tune into that feeling, whatever it may be, whether it's a job or project. If we start to feel some excitement inside, then even though there may be fear as to what to do or how to do it, I think it's so important to follow that excitement, because that's really the foundation of your purpose in life. And then it just transforms and elevates from there.
Now, is this a genuine radio station with transmitter and tower?
No, it's not. That's terrestrial.
Right.
This is a full internet radio station with all the bells and whistles. We have about 50 other podcast directories that we're connected to. We're also syndicated with some other stations in the States as well as Europe. And then we have all the Alexa, all the different ways to listen in your car or at home or on your mobile devices, all of that. So, and what's exciting is we actually do video. And when we're doing the video on YouTube, it's broadcasting through our system. It took us about 6 months to put that together. But it's an exciting thing because you can listen through the station or go to the YouTube all simultaneously. So I'm very excited about it, obviously, and it has grown so much from that little thought that was planted.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm almost certain that you have experienced some not only incredible growth, but also changes just in the last 15 years, just as far as the technology is concerned. I've been doing this for over 40 years, and I've seen unbelievable changes. I still work for a terrestrial radio station that does stream live on the internet, but also this radio program is a podcast, is a video cast, because people can see this program on YouTube on the channel Tell Me Your Story, as well as go to SoundCloud, iTunes, and many of the other podcast sites around the internet to listen to these programs. And then, of course, they can listen to the program live here from this station, Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. and Monday mornings at 1 a.m. and 9 a.m. for our special edition of Tell Me Your Story. And it is richarddugan.com. That's the website where people can listen live to Tell Me Your Story. Deborah Beauvais is my guest, and we are talking about the work that she is doing through the radio and TV station and network that she has created over the last 15 years, which I have to say is very exciting. I know that if I was to own my own radio station, Deborah, based upon the way things have gone thus far in this country in the last, I'm just going to say in the last 8 years, we could even put it a little less time than that as well. I would have a radio station, a news talk and information station that took information from as many different sources as is possible, basically putting into play what is called the Fairness Doctrine that was eliminated by Ronald Reagan back in 1981. When he deregulated the Federal Communications Commission, eliminating third-class licenses and so on and so forth. And my perspective, of course, and I don't know about yours, but is not to have echo chambers, to have information about an issue from as many perspectives as is possible, and to truly, truly let the listener and or the viewer make up their own mind. Not tell them this is the perspective that you should have. And anytime I talk about my own personal experiences and my own personal philosophies, beliefs, etc., they're mine. I don't put them on anybody. And don't ever accuse me of doing that, because I will never do that. That's not what this program is about. And I know that's probably not what your network is about.
Right, right. And I love your idea of having all the different perspectives, and then let people make up their minds, and then we change as we go along in our life journey. What we believed when we were 25 is certainly different from our belief systems when we're 45, and it goes from there. And because we're evolving, and that's what the human does. If you're stuck in your stuff and you're carrying on the belief systems from generations earlier, you really have to ask a lot of questions of yourself. Is this my belief, or is it someone else's? And that's how you evolve.
Yeah. You know, I was you quoted somebody I interviewed about 35 years ago. He was a Christian musician, Christian singer-songwriter by the name of John Fisher. And he was telling me of a story, his story about how he was sitting one day in his New England writer's garret, if you will, looking out the window at the falling leaves during this time of the year, fall. Mm-hmm. He was born and raised in what was called the Jesus movement of the 70s in California. Mm-hmm. And he grew up in all of that stuff. And the question came to him, and I could not be more appreciative of his perspective. He said, the question that came to mind is what I believe, or what I've been told to believe? Now, this is coming from an evangelical, Bible-believing Christian musician
Mhm.
who has been following God for the better part of his life.
Uh-huh.
And now all of the sudden he is questioning what he is, not so much what he is believing, but why he's believing what he's believing.
Exactly.
And I'll throw one more thing in there and have you respond. We had Greg Braden on this program talking about his book, The Healing Power of Belief.
Hmm.
And he said, there will come a day when we will no longer believe. We will just know.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, boy, won't that be exciting, because I won't have to worry about justifying my perspectives. And quite honestly, I don't have to now. I mean, what you believe, Deborah Beauvais, and what I believe might be totally diametrically opposed. But who am I to tell you you're wrong? I'm
Yeah.
not.
Mm.
And I'm not here to tell you, I'm sorry, Deborah, but unless you do it this way, you're not going to go to heaven. You're going to burn in the fires of hell. I mean,
Yeah.
these were the messages that I got in the 15 years I worked for Christian radio back in the 80s, early 90s. So share with us your perspective on this in terms of how you perceive beliefs and your experiences, especially with this network that you have and these, I'm sure it's a diversity of programs and subject matter.
Yes, it is, but it's all based in a holistic perspective. And I created it that way and like to continue in that genre per se. There's all different perspectives, topics, modalities, all the different things from the host. We have 4 MDs that are, really mind, body, spirit doctors now, well-known doctors.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a range, but it's all based in really putting the information out there, even the modalities that everyone has, putting it out, and people can pick and choose what resonates with them, whether it's a tool, whether it's an idea, whether it's a meditation, whatever it may be. So it's based in positivity, and yet as we grow, we're adding shows that are still not bashing or criticizing in a negative way, but information, whether it's about our healthcare system, corporate greed and warfare, all of those different things that I think people need to discuss and decide what they want. Even if you take it to being a consumer, I'm on that bandwagon of the food system that we have. The food system we have is driven by chemicals, by large corporations, big box companies, and we're the consumers. So if we stop buying the products that are not really food, but they have the word food on there. If we stop buying, then they are forced to create and offer more organic foods, real food, fresh food, all of that. So I think we need to discuss it and realize, teach people that they have power within themselves to find who the truth of who they are, and they have the power with their dollars and to speak up. I think it's where the world is now. We need to speak up. Well, no, that doesn't serve us. That's not what we want, because we are the people, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. And then when you spoke of heaven, I'm in a place now where, what is heaven? Is there a heaven? I'm asking a lot of questions. And I think that it's a good thing to ask, because then what happens when you have a conversation, there's clarity that comes on maybe a thought that you've had for a couple of years, and now it just drops in the spot. And you're like, yes, that works for me. That resonates for me. Even that, the afterlife, speaking of that, there's a lot of information that we have from people that have had afterlife experiences. I'm trying to think of the
Oh,
term.
near death and out of body.
Near death.
Yeah.
Thank you. Near death experiences. So there's a lot of questions there. But then the other piece of it is, what do we really know? So it's enjoyable to just, it amazes me, I think, and fascinates me that we all have different perspectives, ideas, thoughts. We all buy a different brand of ketchup. I just find it all fascinating.
Oh, no, we all buy the same brand of ketchup. Are you kidding me? There's only one. I'm not going to say which one that is because everybody buys a different brand of ketchup. This is, I think, a fascinating way for us to dive into some of the work that you have been doing. You actually are a children's story or book writer. You have one book out that is entitled The Pager Doll Kids. We'll talk a little bit about that in just a moment as we continue talking with Deborah Beauvais. She is our guest. She's a contributor and has been a contributor to all three of the Sacred Stories Publishing books, going back to Chaos to Clarity, which we featured 12 of the authors or contributors to that book back in January of 2019. The entire month of Tell Me Your Story was devoted to that whole area of talking about the stories in that book. Also, there was another book that you've contributed to called Crappy to Happy. And also the latest one is Mayhem to Miracles, True Stories of Courage, Triumph, and Peace. And we are going to have a couple of the other co-authors, some of the other people who have contributed to this work as well, here on Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host. I'm here with Deborah Beauvais. We're talking about Mayhem to Miracles, published by the Sacred Stories Publishing Company, sacredsstoriespublishing.com. We hope that you will go to that website and take a look at the book, get a copy of the book. You can also go to another website, and we will be linked to this website. It is dreamvisions7radio.com. That is Deborah's website, where you can find out about the work that she is doing through this television and radio network, if you will. Kind of exciting. Maybe in other circumstances, I may take umbrage with you referring to it as a radio station, because to me, radio is terrestrial. But I guess if you're broadcasting through whatever medium you are able to, information that entertains, educates, inspires, informs, call whatever you want, it's a great medium. I myself believe that terrestrial radio will be around long after I'm gone, and I still have another 40 years to go. I'm 61, and I got another 40 years to go, Deborah. So I believe it'll still be here. It will transform. I mean,
I agree.
You can actually run a radio station. I could run a radio station from my studio up on the hill where I live here in Santa Barbara. Yeah. I don't have. I could. I would have to find a way to get the signal to the tower, but not impossible. I mean, we actually transmit the signal of our broadcast site to our transmitter site via the internet. And so, anything is possible. And in this day and age, that is more true now than ever before. Anything is possible. And you've made that a truism as well through the work that you are doing. Let's jump back. We're going to get into the story of your story in Mayhem to Miracles in just a moment. But I want to ask about this children's book and the reason why you're writing a children's book, The Pager Doll Kids, which of course is an ebook. It's available on Amazon. And just one quick question: is it a children's book that can be made into Audible, or are there lots of pictures that they don't really translate real well in Audible?
It could be Audible,
okay.
And it's The Paper Doll Kids.
Paper Doll Kids. I'm not sure.
Yes.
Did I say? Oh, I said pager. I beg your pardon. Yes. The Paper Doll Kids. My goodness.
Paper dolls. Yes.
Tell us about the focus that you have had in regards to writing a children's book.
Well, it really all started with children, and we all have inner guidance, and we all have guidance from above, from everywhere, from a tree, from a table. There's guidance, whether you want to call it, there's higher being, whether you want to call it God, creator, whatever it may be. And I used to call it God. I used to think it was a guy with long hair and a beard. But then you find out as you start on your journey that may not be true.
Oh, no, don't tell me that. And now next you're going to tell me there's no Santa Claus.
And so, yes. And so as we go on our journey, we learn that we have higher guidance, whether you want to think that it's the angels or the archangels, whatever it may be. But there is a creator of some fashion. Mm-hmm. And what happens when you tune into it, because that's what we are love, we are energy, we are part of God, is that messages come, and glorious messages. Sometimes they come in pieces, as you probably have experienced, Richard, and other times it just comes all in one big lump. And that's what happened with the kids. It started with the Kids for Love project. It's a radio show, and it's a project where I actually went into the school system and taught kids how to connect with themselves. They're already connected much better than we are because they're still young and connected to source. We're trying to find it, as we grow older. Anyway, it was all about mind, body, spirit, teaching them the sense, the smell, the seeing, all those different things, where their love button is, which is the source of their energy, all the different fun things. And so I did that for a while, and then it evolved into a book. And the book is all about 7 kids, that's my number, 7 kids flying around, doing good deeds, and really bringing awareness to planet consciousness, unity consciousness, and endangered animals. And it's all weaved around my family, and it's a legacy from my late husband. The second husband, I went from the worst in the book Mayhem to Miracles to the most amazing husband, but he was killed in an accident. But we had 17 years. And they were amazing years. And so the book is a legacy for the Beauvais family.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is really beautiful. Obviously, 17 years later, my sincere condolences for your loss, because it sounds like you had an amazing second life in those 17 years. When I divorced, people used to look at me. You don't look the same. You look like you've been reborn, mm-hmm. reincarnated into a new life. And I started thinking about that in terms of, in a manner of speaking. And again, it's not to say that the first life was horrible, because if I were to ask you, Deborah, so I understand you and your family went to Disneyland. How was it? And you sit there and go, oh, it was fantastic. It was so great. I'd say liar. Because I know there were some frustrations. I know there were some challenges. The kids were unruly. They got noisy. They did this. The lines were unbelievable. And the price of the food drove me nuts. And plus the fact that it wasn't real healthy, and so on and so on. So there's always two sides to it. And so when I talk about my first marriage, it ended in divorce for several different reasons, but that doesn't mean that there weren't some good times there. Now, in your case, with your second husband, you got that second chance, so to speak.
Yes, I did.
And you also have kids. You even mentioned that. And your story is about how you saved your children and so forth. So tell us a little bit about this work, if you will, and about your story about how a mother's mission to save her child.
Okay, going back to the beginning of time. Uh, okay, so I came from a tumultuous childhood, just like many of us. And at the time, it's awful, it's heavy. But as time goes on, you can see, especially if you open your consciousness, you can see the gifts in everything that happens. It doesn't change maybe the depth of the sorrow or whatever. However, you do come to peace and you see all the gifts. So back then, I got married young. I had a lot of emotional abuse at the childhood level. And so marrying someone that was physically and emotionally abusive seemed like, well, gee, this is the way it is. And I was young. So when I got pregnant, I thought in my naive way that all the abuse would stop, and it didn't. But the physical abuse didn't happen again for a little while. And then I was in the shower one day, and there was an argument, and he hit me while I was pregnant with his child as well. And that was a wake up call for me. It was okay back then. I accepted the abuse. But once he hit me while I was carrying my daughter, that's when I said, okay, this is it. I also had a very strong foundation within me that I was not going to be like my mom. My mom had an abusive, abrasive childhood, abandonment, all of that. And then she had mental health issues because I believe that generation kept everything inside and then it turned to health issues. And so I didn't want to be my mom. I wanted my child to have joy, love, and be safe. And the safety was really strong within me. So that's when I started to plan to run away. And I had no idea again of how I was going to do that. But I was a stylist, a hairstylist at the time. And I saved $50 here, $50 there. And it was quite a journey, because back then when I was looking for a place to live in a short period of time, because back then he would go on little toots, as I would call them, and he might be gone for 3 or 4 days. So when he was gone is when all the action came in. And my stepmother at the time drove me around. But the most devastating part of it all, when I was trying to find my way and save her, was that back then they did not rent to a single mom with a child. There had to be a man there.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and I wasn't comfortable with lying. And so it was me and my 6-week-old child is when I left. And so it took a while to find a place, to find a roof, but I eventually did. And so, yeah.
Yeah. I find it interesting that you had to plan out your escape. And I've heard these stories before from women specifically, but it's not exclusive to women either. Sometimes men are in abusive situations and they've got to find a way out. And but it's not in the nature of some men to just run, It is just very interesting that we have this as men, we have this innate need to fix. I can fix this. I can fix this.
I
And
think women do too, Richard. I think a lot of young women do. I was one of them where I thought, I would fix it. I'll take this now, but we can fix it. So, but I agree with you. There are a lot of men that have to plan an escape as well.
well, I know that I have experienced that with my first marriage and divorce when I had to make the decision, I've got to go. I can't stay in this environment anymore. And that is a tough decision to make because you've spent all this time, you've invested all of this time in this relationship. In my case, it was 15 years. And it disappointed me, it saddened me, and it frustrated me because when I got married at the age of 23, which may or may not have been too young for me, one of my goals was to be married as long as my parents, who just celebrated their 65th wedding anniversary back in June of 2021. My father's 90, doing great, going strong. Mother's 87, also doing great and going strong back in Phoenix. And that hurt, that I knew that if I found someone else, I had to start all over. It was like running a marathon and then making a mistake at the 22-mile mark or the 18-mile mark, and then I got to go back to the beginning and start all over again.
Yes.
And I always hated that. Or I used to bicycle everywhere, and sometimes I would head out on my journey, and this was a recreational bicycle, a bicycle ride in Phoenix, where I would want to go out to Scottsdale or out to Glendale, what have you. And I forgot, and I'd already traveled 4 miles. I had to go back and pick up whatever it was that I forgot and then start all over again with that first 4 miles. So the rest of the ride was, I wonder how much further I'd be along if I hadn't forgotten that thing,
Right.
But sometimes, you got to start over. For you, starting over, how was that for you in terms of making your own way? And obviously we can say, oh, well, it was great and successful because, well, here she is, Deborah Beauvais, talking to us here. She has her own TV radio network, and she's just going great guns with the work that she's doing. But I'm sure you did not see that at the time that you were making this decision to say, bye-bye.
Right. I was 21 when I ran away with her. So, I mean, just that in itself, when I think I have grandchildren now, and I think, it's not too far from now that they're going to be 21, some of them.
Yeah.
And you think, oh my gosh, how did I do that? But every one of us has such inner strength that we can call upon right within us. And then we have the higher guidance as well. I didn't know back then that there was this higher guidance that could help me. I just went on steam. And one of the things I'd like to bring up, in order for me to have the inner strength in my young mind, I thought the best way was to build hate against the father, against the husband. And obviously we know now that hate creates trauma inside, and that trauma can turn into health issues, all kinds of things. And it's just not, it doesn't serve anyone. But at that time, that's what gave me the strength to leave, to just move myself physically and start making the plans to leave. And then years later, I'm working on the trauma from that hatred. And even I think, in all honesty, and it's something new that I have awakened to, is that when my daughter was in utero, I was focusing on hate. And I know that that is not healthy for the child. So it opens up to a whole string of issues and trauma when you have that hate. We should never hold that for anyone or anything.
Deborah Beauvais is my guest. She is the author of The Paper Doll kids. She is also the author of a story that you will find, you, the listener and the viewer, will find in Mayhem to Miracles, published by Sacred Stories Publishing Company. SacredStoriesPublishing.com is that website, so you can find out more. I'm sure it is also available on Amazon, so get your clicker over there and get a copy of the book and read her story. Also, you can go to Deborah's website, which we will be linked to, Dream Visions 7, the number 7, dreamvisions7radio.com, and we encourage you to check out the work that she is doing, maybe become a part of what she is doing. She's also the co-host of a radio program. I suppose if there's video, you could also call it a television program called Love by Intuition. And we're going to talk about that next here on the program as we continue talking with Deborah on Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. You know, we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We're looking for those new ways of living because the old ways, look around you, they're not working. So we got to come up with something new. We need to move forward on this, and we're doing that. And Deborah's doing that, and she's finding new ways of doing things that weren't even around when I got into this business, and it's really exciting for me to be a part of the transformation as well, and the learning curve. It's really a lot of fun, and there are a lot of people that I owe my place right here, right now with you, Deborah. Thousands of people that I owe a debt of thanks and gratitude to, who have helped me along the way over the past 40 plus years. Including, of course, my parents that I mentioned earlier. But I want to touch upon something that you said, but also the title of your radio program, television program, Love by Intuition. We talk on this program, Deborah, about encouraging people to participate in, at first, it was the Year of Perfect Vision, 2020. Then it became the Decade of Perfect Vision, the 2020s. To go within, to listen to that still, small voice, and spend time in that quiet, peaceful, calming place, just to relax and rejuvenate, re-energize, and listen to the guidance that is there for you as an individual. Tell us about, and I kind of like to put it this way, tell us about your inner life in regards to your intuition or listening to your higher self or the divine, whatever name you might give it.
In what respect?
In terms of not only your choosing to leave at the age of 21, but also in terms of many of the other decisions that you've made since then, including 15 years ago, starting this radio television network.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So back when I was 21, I really didn't know I had guidance. And that's another thing to consider, for everyone to consider, no matter how young or old they are. There's an innate guidance from above or from, it doesn't have to be above. It's the light. Mm-hmm. The light is everywhere.
It is.
And so there's that guidance that we all have, even if we're not awakened to it, it's there. And I feel as though, looking back, that I had that guidance, and then I was driven to leave and save my daughter. And naturally, there are challenges throughout our whole lives. I say there's lives within our lives, because that's how our souls grow. And that's why we're on earth, to experience, at least from my perspective, I feel we're here to learn and grow our souls through emotions, through heaviness, through darkness, and to see, what makes us tick. What's unique about us? What's our truth? So that's what guided me at 21, and not being my mom. And I love my mom unconditionally. Mm-hmm. And so it is. But so what happened beyond that is, even through the wonderful 17 years that I had with my husband, you make decisions by a message, and it's hard to articulate how that message comes, most times for me, they come early in the morning, just as I'm awakening. It might be a whole project. It might be a person's name. It might be clarification to start a new project, or to just know that whatever challenge it may be, it's there for us to learn. It's a lesson. And I say that every morning. What am I going to learn today? Especially when a challenge comes with technology or different things that happen in life. I'll say, okay, well, this is, I can go down this path, which you do, because you're annoyed, you're aggravated, but then you stop and say, well, wait a minute now. What am I going to learn from this? And then sure as heck, there's a little nugget that you can take to the next project or the next challenge. And you're like, okay. And I always say, thank you. And so this is what's guided me, and paying attention, as I said early on, to that excitement that you have, excitement around a book, excitement around the station. And I wanted to just clarify, because I agree with you that there's so many radio platforms out there. People will say that they have a radio station, and it might just be on-demand MP3s.
Mm-hmm.
For me, a station is terrestrial first and foremost. And then for our station, because that's where I started.
Yeah.
When we started Dream Vision 7, we were not producing shows. We bought a block of time on a terrestrial station. And that's how we started. So I still have that love and honor for terrestrial radio. With our station now, we graduated some years back to broadcasting. You have to have the software and all of that, but we're broadcasting, and then we're streaming. Broadcasting means that you have technology system that you can broadcast live shows. And then we graduated, as I mentioned earlier, to doing video live and broadcasting live through our station simultaneously. So for me, that works as a station. But again, I know that terrestrial radio will always be there. And that's the foundation with all the pieces. And it's a big job. And our job is really big with what we're doing. And I'm excited over it, as always looking for something new, always looking to see what new technology has come. And so I receive daily guidance with the station, with my life, and even with, for the people listening, even if you have an illness or something going on, I just say out loud, what do I need to know to heal this? What do I need to know to heal this over here? Or even say the personal body organ or whatever it may be that you're wanting to heal. If you've done a lot of work, inner work, you've healed a lot. But sometimes the trauma stays longer. And when you outly, not just say it within yourself, but say it out loud. And I'll say, Creator, Lord, God. I interchange all the names. But I will say, what do I need to know? And there's so many, I'll tell you, well, there are so many different miracles that have happened when you trust that guidance. There's so many things that I've experienced where I've been, in a dangerous situation in life, and something that has happened right in front of me shows me I need to leave and get out of that situation. There's so many wondrous things that happen when you tune into the guidance. I'm sorry, I'm going on too much about that, but
Well, see, that's the beauty of podcasts is
Yes.
there's no time limit. I mean, we could go on for hours if we wanted to. And that's the thing I love about the podcast and videocast world is that there is that expansion. Whereas with the radio version of this program, we are, of course, constrained by the clock and other programming. So we need to keep that in mind as well. We're talking with Deborah Beauvais. She is a contributing author to Mayhem to Miracles, available through sacredstoriespublishing.com. And we also encourage you to go to Dream Visions 7, that's Dream Visions, the number 7, radio.com. And that is Deborah's website. And we encourage you to go there to find out more. And we hope that you will stay with us here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I thank you for staying with us here on the program as we talk with Deborah Beauvais and the work that she is doing, especially through her radio television network, which is dreamvision7radio.com, and we hope that you'll go there. I want to ask you a little bit more about the network, Dream Vision 7. Tell me about... You said it was holistic, and I was just looking at some of the shows, the titles, and you don't have just one tab with all of the shows. You have three. There are so many shows. You have to have 3 tabs so that the list is not super long. You got to scroll halfway down the next page just to get there. But tell us about some of the shows and their hosts. And I'm curious because I've worked for a few stations, including this one, where after a while, and I've been here 15 years, it becomes a family. People begin to grasp the vision, or at least they're part of your vision. Tell us about that connection, that collaboration, that community.
Yes, well said, because it does become a family where, we're a large community with all different people involved, listeners and such. Some of our hosts have been with us since the beginning. And yes, my work is all about teaching people self-love, of which naturally is my own journey. And I think there's I don't know what the percentage is, but it seems like 90% of the human race really needs to realize that they're enough just the way they are, that they are loved, and they're never alone, and they are safe. And those are the things that is the foundation that I started with the station. So when you resonate in that and you live your truth in everything you do, and obviously none of us are perfect, but if you're living from that place, then you attract people that are feeling that same way. So many of the hosts are, they have modalities, they have their own business, but it's all around holistic, teaching people to connect with the inner child, teaching people how to heal cancer in their own way. And when I say that, it may be from a holistic approach and conventional medicine blended together, or it may just be the holistic piece, finding your way there, because there's a lot of modalities and things that can heal us that may not have the billions of dollars to advertise, or maybe squashed because of corporate greed and all.
Yeah.
So we have Dr. Bernie Siegel, who is 88 years old now.
I had him on this program many times. Wonderful man.
Yes, and he's a pioneer in guided imagery and dreams and all. We have Kat Cannabis, who I'm sure you know, who's an excellent dream expert and will help you understand what the dream actually means from different angles too. We have Dr. Mylène Ryobi. She is an MD, and she's dual MD certified, both in integrative medicine as well as OBGYN, and her she knows the body and how it works. So her show is all about what the body does if you feed it certain things or give it a med. We have Dr. Carolyn Dean, who has an amazing group and community within herself, and it's all about supplements and magnesium that we need as a body. And you can find out all this information by exploring yourself. You know, it's a lot of the MDs, as Dr. Bernie and Dr. Emmett Miller will tell you, that have been with me for years, that doctors aren't educated in alternative ways. They're learning how to medicate, how to find, they're not finding preventative. They're trying to fix the issue instead of going to the core. And that is something that we need to talk about, think about, and learn ourselves, to see if that suits us, if that works for us. So all the different hosts have their ways of putting their message out. Again, you can add this to your toolbox, you can remove that, whatever works. And they're talking from their hearts, as you do. And when you do come from your truth and your heart, then people know that what you're saying is worthwhile listening. And then it's up to the listener to decide what they want to do with that information.
Bernie Siegel, of course, is also a contributor to Mayhem to Miracles, published by Sacred Stories Publishing. He, I believe, was also in Chaos to Clarity. Needless to say, we've had a lot of fun with him, especially when he and his grandson collaborated on a book of poetry and other things as well. The other thing that I find very interesting in regards to holistic health, in terms of not fixing the problem after it's developed, the symptom, if you will, but the whole aspect of preventative, taking care of oneself. My father told me when I started driving at the age of 38, mind you, that he says, just make sure you change the oil. If that's all you do is have a regular oil, lube, and filter change, your vehicle is going to last a heck of a lot longer. And when you finally made the final payment, you won't be making more payments to the mechanic to fix the problems that weren't there and wouldn't be there now if you had just changed the oil on a regular routine basis. And that's what I do. I mean, that's a simple thing. Now, I'm not paranoid to where I'm hearing this noise and I take it to I'm hearing this ticka, 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 or blah, 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 blah. And then he's got to try to find it. No. I will do that, and I ask him to do like a bulb check, go around the truck and make sure all the lights, bulbs are on, because I don't want to get a fix-it ticket for that, because that's kind of a pain, and you got to find an officer to sign off on it once you get it fixed. I try to take care of those things before something goes wrong. So when it comes to the human body, there is a technique I learned, oh my gosh, close to 35 years ago, called kinesiology. Muscle testing is another name for it. But that, because it is said that the body will not lie. It will always tell you the truth.
That's right.
And that's why I believe so strongly in the intuition. I mean, it's in there, if you will, to put it euphemistically. And it's there to help you, and it will guide you. And sometimes you don't actually have to do the old this and da-da-da, yes and no and yes. Sometimes you just have to just pause for a moment and listen. Okay, how do I feel about this? How do I feel about that? And you're going to know right away. And here's the other thing I'd love for you to dive into real quickly here before we have to wrap the program up, and that is this. The process of, so to speak, exercising your intuition, or maybe not so much exercising your intuition, but exercising your trust in your intuition. And maybe start with little things and kind of work your way up.
Okay. All I can think of bigger things. But
Well, no, I mean, we eventually get there. But I mean, you don't trust your intuition to the big things from the very beginning of being told, hey,
oh,
listen to
I
that inner
see.
voice, listen to that still small voice, and so
Yeah,
forth. It's like, well,
yeah,
yeah, but how can I be sure that, it's not going to have me walking off of a cliff? Well, I can guarantee you it's not going to have you walking off of a cliff. Never put you in
right,
harm's way. It will
right.
challenge you. I know you would agree, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But let's
Yeah,
talk a
it's
little
a,
bit about that in terms of beginning the process of trusting your intuition.
okay. Okay. I think it really starts with meditation. If you're sitting quietly and learning how to meditate, that's when you tune into it more. But at the very beginning, it goes, I always went by a feeling. And if I was doing something or involved with something that wasn't to the highest good of safety, I would start to feel nauseous right in the area where your intuition is. And I would be like, why am I feeling nauseous? And then I'd be like, oh, I'm not supposed to be doing this. And I think that's what we all start with, um, is that, you know, it will tell you. It will tell you. But the main thing I think for the average person is to listen. We're so busy in our lives today, especially the younger ones that have their jobs and the children and the pandemic and all of that goes on. Um, we need to stop and listen, and listen to how we're feeling. Just as I mentioned with doing the station, just the idea of starting a network, I got excited. And that was how I knew that was the right path to take. And so it just evolves from there. The more time that you spend in nature, just watching a bird, listening to a bird, watching a hummingbird, which has come right to me, they talk. The trees talk with you. All of that, if you just spend even 15 minutes at the beginning. And then what happens is it feels good and you get tingles and you can feel light within yourself. You feel so much better, both physically, mentally, emotionally. And so that's what propels you to want to spend more time, to take more time, even if it's 5 minutes a few times during the day. So that's how that all works. But it also saves you. I wanted to share this. It's a long story, but the short story of it was that I was in the home. I went to the home of a boyfriend who had taken money from my daughter, one of my daughters, and I was not going to put up with that because I was the protector of my girls. And so I went to the home to retrieve the money. And like I said, there's a lot of details, but I just sat on a chair and then yelling started to happen. The next thing that happened before my very eyes, the whole room filled up with a white fog. And I was like thinking to myself, what is going on? And then there was a tunnel that opened up from the fog. This is real. I'm explaining what I saw and experienced right in front of my eyes. And there was a tunnel that opened up so that I could see where the door was to leave. And there was all kinds of yelling going on at the time. And then a voice came to me and said, leave now, get out now, fast. And so I left. I don't know what would happen, what would have happened if I stayed there. But all that happened right before my eyes. And these things happen to all of us at different times of our lives. So I've had these experiences so many times. I just know that we're all guided every day. We just need to listen and tune in.
I would agree with you on that. It's very important for us to be listening. And we are listening to you, Deborah Beauvais. She is the author of not only her own children's book called The Paper Doll Kids, she is also the author of a story you will find in Mayhem to Miracles. It is a book that I think you are going to want to get a hold of, not just in these times, but at any time, looking for some inspiration and encouragement and enlightenment. I think this, along with the other two books that have been put out by Sacred Stories Publishing called Chaos to Clarity, Crappy to Happy, and now Mayhem to Miracles. I'm really curious as to what words they're going to use to describe the same concept in book 4, because there are so many stories out there that you just can't put them all in one book. And I think it's great what they're doing in terms of educating and enlightening and inspiring us here on Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. Deborah's website, by the way, is Dream Visions, that's plural, Dream Visions, the number 7, radio.com. And of course, the publishing company, sacredstoriespublishing.com, as we continue giving you new choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. This is Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, and I'm Richard Dugan, your host, along with Deborah Beauvais, who is sharing her time and her stories with us. Multiple stories of how she was in one marriage and said bye-bye, and then had another one, and then I'm gonna say he said bye-bye due to an accident, but you had a marvelous turnaround in that second life with him. And of course, you have a daughter who I'm sure has been an inspiration to you. I was sharing this in another interview. I'll share this with you real quickly before we wrap things up, and that is that my mother, who is 87, doing well, doing great back in Phoenix, some years ago, we were saying goodbye after some gathering, what have you, and we hugged each other, and I said to her, I love you, Mom. And she said to me something that at the time, I couldn't figure out, really? She knows my name. She said, I love you, son. And it was only sometime after that I pondered that. I'm going, you know what? I like that better. Not that I don't mind being called Richard, but there was something about my mother saying, I love you, son, that was so different. In terms of your connection with your daughter, your child, no matter how old they get, they're still your children. I know this from what I've heard from parents. They will always be your children, even when you're in your 90s and they're in their 50s or 60s or 70s. Talk to us a little bit before we wrap up about your connection, your relationship with your daughter.
It's in all honesty, it's always based in love, but there's so much history that goes on with when you leave. If you're speaking, I have 3 daughters, but that particular daughter was adopted by my second husband, and it was a loving relationship. But there was a lot of history for her to sift through because I left the first husband, which technically was her biological father. She found out in her own way because I did not tell her any negativity. I didn't want to create anything for her. I wanted to have her find out herself. She knew that I left in order to save her, but she didn't know any reason why, too much later. In her college years is when he came to find her, and it was an ugly situation in a public environment, and she realized that this person was not a kind, good person. And so there's been a lot. She's been on a journey herself, just as every person is, to find her way. We're all trying to find our way. So she came with all this information, and there's so many details to it. It's an unbelievable story. It could fill a book, just that particular experience.
Now, there's your next book.
Yes, yes. So anyway, she's in a very good place now. She has 2 little boys, and her husband is excellent. There's parts of him that remind me of her father, which is Rick, and the second husband. And so it's I guess that's all that I would like to share right now, other than we all continue. We never stop learning, as you know, Richard. We're going to be learning until it's time to transition to the other side. And so, but I have learned so much from that relationship. And even today, I learned from her how I can be a better person, how I can just be in peace and support her with whatever she needs at the time. So it's an interesting journey, still ongoing.
Yeah. Well, and as long as we are still walking and breathing and talking on this earth, we are all on that journey. We're on a journey right now with Deborah Beauvais, and we're talking about the work that she does through her radio and television network, as well as the writings that she's doing. And who knows, folks, there may be a book coming about the relationship that she has with her first daughter there. You never know on this program what will unfold. This is Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and we are talking with Deborah Beauvais, contributor to Mayhem to Miracles, published by SacredStoriesPublishing.com. Her website, that is Deborah Beauvais' website, is Dream Visions, plural, the number 7. So kind of think of it that way. Dream Visions, 7 visions. The number 7 radio, dreamvisions7.com. And boy, I tell you what, that sounds like something I should get involved in with Tell Me Your Story, getting an expansion over that in that direction. Maybe we'll talk later. But one of the things that I do like to do, Deborah, is I like to ask my guests 3 final questions.
Okay.
You may have answered them during the program, but I like to ask them directly. However, first, I am going to let you, the listener and the viewer, know that I am thankful for your listening and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. We are here Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m. We stream live at those times at richarddugan.com. Oh, and don't forget about the 9 a.m. Wednesday special edition. Don't miss that one. And then, of course, we podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many other locations around the internet that even you folks are reposting our interviews too. And thanks for doing that too, by the way. We're also on YouTube, Tell Me Your Story, and Richard Dugan. Just look for the guy with the hat. And we also hope that you will support us financially if you can. We have a PayPal account for your security as well as ours. And when you go to send money to us, and we would greatly appreciate that, they're going to ask you for the email address for whom the contribution is for. Well, the email address is richard@richarddugan.com. That's richard@richarddugan.com. And we also ask you to participate in the decade of perfect vision, the 2020s. Go within in a time of meditation. One of my guests has actually said, it doesn't have to take long. It could just start out with just 60 seconds. 1 minute of going within, being still and being quiet and getting rejuvenated and re-energized and listening to that still small voice. I guarantee you, you won't go wrong. I'm sorry, but I'm going to make that guarantee. You won't go wrong if you're listening to that still small voice that is going to help to guide you and propel you forward into bigger and better and greater things in your life. But it doesn't do any good just to listen. You've got to follow the promptings. And I learned that lesson early on. And now I don't want to say that it's second nature because I don't want to take it for granted. But it's almost second nature. I do try to stay conscious of that. With all of that, I now turn back to my guest and say, First of the three questions is, who is Deborah Beauvais?
Oh, wow. I am a grateful person to have an opportunity to live on earth and grow my soul. I am based in love. I am a person that lives from my truth and works from my truth, not only in my personal life, family life, business life. I'm here exuding love and understanding. And I'm a person that questions a lot and wants to learn more about why we're here on this earth and what makes people tick and what's the afterlife like. And is there really an afterlife, or is it just another dimension and we're not elevated enough? We haven't transcended enough to understand what that is or even to see it. So I'm just I'm on my journey, and that's really who I am. And serving is very important to me. I think just as your show, Richard, by listening to our stories, listening to our journey, it helps people. It may be that, gee, I'm not alone. Someone else has experienced that. Or I don't have to be a victim anymore. I don't have to live from that victim mindset. I have a choice, so it's opening people's minds that, they are powerful. They are a magnificent being. Their bodies can regenerate. They have choices, and they can stay safe in all the ways that they choose to live their lives, and not to really live from that mainstream America. What kind of shoes am I going to buy next week? Or all my responsibilities, is to stop and really listen to yourself in your life, and always wanting, that's one of the things that I strive to be, is a better person, not to be better than anyone else. I'm not saying it in that respect, but to just be better than I am today.
Mm. What is it that you hope to or want to achieve through the work that you're doing now?
Just knowing that you make a difference in people's lives, bringing attention to different things that we can do as a people, as a person. Many times people will say, well, what can I do? I'm just one person. But you can make choices. We can have unity. I believe it all starts with us. If we're resonating in hate, if we're disliking someone in the family, if we're talking about others and what they've done in a negative way, in a deceitful way, that is not serving to have peace and unity. It all starts within, as you know. Once you are resonating in kindness and that, and we all have bad days. We all have challenges where you just want to scream. But that doesn't change your way of treating others. And then you can forgive yourself. That's so important, to forgive yourself and others, so that you have the peace inside. Once the peace is inside, then we will see more people in peace on the outside. And that's how it works. It's universal law.
My final question. What is your life's purpose?
To teach love, self-love. That the foundation of why I'm here, not only for myself, but for others, to learn how to love yourself, that you are enough, as I mentioned earlier. We are enough just the way we are. We don't have to wait till we lose weight. We don't have to be a better person. We don't have to do anything but love ourselves, to reconnect with the divine love that we are. We all have divine love within us, and it's just there waiting to reconnect. We already know this from a higher perspective, but from an earth perspective, perspective, we do not realize that. Once you find the love for yourself, then everything starts to glow. All the pieces start to come together as long as you listen and then act. Be brave enough to act.
Deborah Beauvais, I want to thank you so much for your time and your story and your radio and television network as well at dreamvisions7radio.com. We're very grateful for what you've shared with us, and I know that you have touched the hearts and minds, I'm sure, of people who are watching this program, but also who are watching your program on your network. And we thank you again for giving us so much time.
Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed it so much. I can feel the love and all. So thank you for the opportunity.
And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, as we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to love.